Pixel Gun started as a relatively small mobile game in its early release on May 2nd, 2013. It was released for iOS and Android and cost $1 on the mobile versions, but was free on the computer. At one point in this early release, it lacked multiplayer and focused on fighting NPC mobs. You've probably noted that the designs are loosely inspired by Minecraft mobs like the creeper, zombies, spiders, and skeletons. I think what made it stand out was that there were so many Call of Duty clones at the time. You can think of it as such like Warface, Warframe, and Rise of the Triad. The list goes on. However, in this early era of Pixel Gun, some YouTubers like ExxoticGaming made related videos about weapons featured in the game. Their properties were also included and what kinds of capabilities the weapons had. The game was cool because in a time when many mobile games presented an aim to realistic graphics, Pixel Gun 3D itself was an inspiration directly from Minecraft, distinct in its pixelated style. I believe this visually reinforced an image of a, kid-friendly disguise to appeal to younger audiences and be less demanding graphically. The RPG elements made you feel like you were surviving in a post-apocalyptic world, a science fiction scenario in a laboratory, or an alien world. You had rocket launchers, assault rifles, and grenades to arm yourself and become a soldier of total annihilation and destruction to your monsters and enemies. On top of that, the story behind the campaign didn't say much, so in theory, you could leave the story up for interpretation or expand with your own ideas about what these locations, creations, and reasoning for your mission actually meant. If you've played the game or know a lot about other YouTube videos in the Pixel Gun community, quite a few videos talk about the strange story of Pixel Gun 3D, as I mentioned earlier. Like many combat games, it wasn't exactly built to be deep, introspective, and immersive story, but it did leave room for ideas of how this land truly works. The protagonist, known as Newbie or Pixel Man, unless you change your skin, you progress with the visual comics of this character between each level. He is likely a farmer or gun-owning individual, but a zombie outbreak breaches his home and the greater area. He goes through the city, likely realizing the chaos of what just happened, and has essentially become post-apocalyptic. At the end of the first world, he finds a school, which then leads him to the second world, which is shown to be a different dimension. In this realm, Pixel Man meets the survivor, sometimes known as the female survivor, who at every point beyond the beginning of World 2 can be seen sitting on ledges or hiding in different areas, so it becomes a little Easter egg. At the end of the second world, you fight basically the Ender Dragon, which can be seen as the being who released monsters upon the world because of its presence being disturbed. It's basically the Ender Dragon, but black and red. The survivor and protagonist continue through this world and into World 3, known as Crossed Worlds. It is a mix of the fantasy realm and apparently the real world. Eventually, a wizard is encountered of the realm. World 4, also known as Virtual Worlds. After following the wizard's advice and finding the creator, honestly, if I'm being 90% sure, is probably a notch reference from Minecraft. After following the wizard's advice and finding the creator who lived in the metropolis, reveals that there was a bug when he was creating a game. It turned out that the entire universe turned into a form of voxelization and created the bug monster. Using virtual reality, the player goes into the virtual world and has to defeat the bug directly, but then causes the player to become the bug. Honestly, the story is all over the place, but that is what makes it mysterious, dorky, and worth playing. In the game's early stages, when it was initially released, it featured a campaign mode with World 1 and 2, as these were part of the original campaign available during this earlier time. Although in the earliest versions it was much more basic, it only had the campaign mode with 6 levels in version 1.0 and iOS. Survival mode was another gameplay option players could choose, and the individual would face an infinite, increasingly difficult wave of enemies and try to survive as long as possible until defeat. But it reaped rewards. You could also customize your skin by painting it with pixel hex color palette reminiscent of a built-in skin decks. Some of the earliest weapons and maps added after 1.0 are also no longer available, unfortunately, in the current version of the game. Some of these were patched, too similar, or clustered. When multiplayer mode was eventually released, it significantly increased the popularity of the Pixel Gun shooter game on mobile app stores, reaching approximately 10,000 players daily in early 2014. Now you could customize usernames and play with your friends and make the game competitive. You could have royales, teams, and capture the flag, which was pretty fun and my favorite myself. With the leaderboard, level ups in multiplayer, and global ranking, it gave people a reason to keep playing and continue to improve their gaming skills. Afterwards, the foundation and success laid the groundwork for future development and expansions of the game's social features and game models. Some of these designs were quite interesting, including the mech robot. Early in the game, there were already about 100 weapons, but later on, and the following years expanded, it became about 1,000 weapons. But obtaining and buying them would eventually become a hassle and more complex. Honestly, there was a mix of traditional and realistic weapons, which kind of made it more badass, mixed with, fantasy and exotic. These included the machine gun, a reliable basic gun for close to medium range combat. The assault machine gun was a more powerful version of the machine gun, with a higher fire rate, ideal for players who like long range combat, including myself. The Hellraiser was a high damage assault rifle, and it was favored by players who wanted a powerful primary weapon for pushing objectives, eliminating monsters quickly, and the Pixel Gun, obviously named after the game. And last but not least, the default backup was good for a start off for learning, but will quickly lose its effectiveness once facing stronger enemies. Other backup weapons are the Fast Death and Mercenary. The list goes on of weapons and their classes. Honestly, I could not even name all of them even if I wanted to. It's like trying to name every single item on Terraria's wiki and describing each one. The Wikipedia itself displays much of the information you can quickly find on the World Wide Web. It's fan-made and relatively organized, but can get overwhelming quickly. This early period of the game marked its potential to expand and the good addictive mechanics that made it, engaging. I wasn't the best myself with shooters, especially on mobile or Kindle Fire, which was what I played on, but I enjoyed games for the sake of playing them, if you know what I mean. Listen, if my 11-year-old self enjoyed it and played Pixel Gun 3D constantly, there was likely some reason for me to stick around. By mid-2014 and 2015, Pixel Gun 3D continued to evolve and maintained its success following the introduction of multiplayer in 2013. Building on the achievements of models like Deathmatch and Team Fight, more competitive multiplayer options were introduced. This included modes like the previously mentioned Capture the Flag and special maps designed for parkour and making it difficult to bring the flag to your team. The introduction of clan features allowed a player to join and create a group as like a cult or gang, I guess, for digital social interaction. Of course, the game also continued to add new and unique weaponry and expand a wide range of options available to players, providing new classes and strategies. Updates were commonplace and received regular bug fixes, so you'd end up updating your game frequently, and there were performance improvements such as a June 2014 update that optimized Pixel Gun for lower-end devices. However, most online games are like this. Constant updates are to be expected regardless. Also, if anyone remembers the development or talks of Pixel Gun World in 2015, the developers announced and begun beta testing for a Pixel Gun World on PC as an expansion of the Pixel Gun potential gaming franchise, and it had its own graphics, although it had shut down later but then returned in 2023. And still to this day, an online website and official gameplay exists on YouTube. From 2015 to 2018, this marked a significant shift and change for the whole development of the studio. We were introduced to the Battle Pass system, a common monetization progression model in mobile games. We also saw a rise in the OP class weapons, which would sometimes irritably interrupt progression and gameplay balance. In May of 2018, we had the Pixel Gun 3D Revolution update that marked a major change from the developers' anticipated big changes like redirecting or fixing overpowered weapons and improving anti-cheat systems or bringing back old content like removed weapons and maps. After 2018, the game saw major changes in its gameplay system. As previously mentioned, we could call this the downfall period or the Fortnitification of Pixel Gun 3D. Not to say that Fortnite is bad, but following its same model, I guess. The controversy happened with the pay-to-win system, with the loot boxes and battle passes, increasing the strength of already overpowered weapons beyond their regular capacity. After these new updates, the game's community's sentiments shifted, with many players expressing on YouTube and on the Google Play Store with not very nice reviews that the developers had lost touch with the experience and soul of the concept's originality. Pixel Gun 3D's decline in popularity had steeply declined after 2020, despite its much earlier success. Many weapons, without spending real money, became either incredibly difficult and inconvenient to buy or to spend without using real money. Obviously, this would piss people off because it doesn't even try to hide itself. This created a power creep where players who did not have the latest and new gear were at a mountainous disadvantage. I remember when I re-downloaded the game a few years ago, which it hasn't changed much since then. I don't even think they have a World 5. Yeah, they don't. I remember there were so many new introductions of weaponry that created a severely unbalanced state of gameplay. Now, it's okay to add a lot of weapons, but there needs to be a significant ordered progression. Otherwise, it kind of becomes meaningless and you don't really have a foundation where you know exactly point A to point B. This is one of the first rules in gaming that you do not want to achieve. If there's no clear objective or progression, and if a person in the experience feels used, if you know what I mean, that psychologically does not resonate. People can sense if a game puts the fun first or the profit first. Think about it like this. Even if there is an item behind a paywall, it can still be exciting, possibly obtained within a time frame, and man, it will still feel very good and achievable by the end once you do obtain it, regardless if it does or doesn't cost real money. And also, just to let you know, a sequel called Pixel Gun 2 has been announced officially. The game was also developed by Cubic Games and is planned to be released in early 2026 on mobile devices, and also iOS and Android, and, you know, PC via Steam. With console expanded versions to follow up eventually, it maintains the franchise signature pixel art style, but there are some additional humanoid details to the characters. And that's literally where I ended the script. But I think this should be interesting if we're genuinely looking at a new update and seeing what could exist, and not really an update, but just an entire new game. I am genuinely curious to see how this could go. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think about this. I hope everyone has a good rest of their day, and keep up on my channel. I post way more videos, and have a good one. See ya.